Hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Gregory Skinner from Escalent, and today we have a great session. It's called Collaboration, Integration, Prioritization, How to Foster Business Growth. I'm excited to have additional 3 guests here with me. Before I get there, let me just introduce myself. So I'm VP of Strategic Insights for Auto and Mobility for Escalent. Escalent is a global advisory and analytics firm. We work with a host of different companies, actually a lot of different companies, including everybody from OEMs to tier 1 to 2 suppliers. And we've been doing it for quite a while. I think that puts us in a really advantageous position because we get a really good overview of the market, understand what's going on. I personally spend a lot of time with fleets, fleet managers, techs, drivers. So I'd like to think I have some really good insight on what's going on. I also have 3 guests here with me. I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves really briefly in a minute. But just so you know, we have Kelly Kiger, who is VP of Commercial Vehicle Sales for Workhorse. We have Stephen Rice, who is National Fleet Account Executive for ChargePoint. And we have Gil Weiss, who is the founder and principal of Automotive Training Team. So very esteemed colleagues, very knowledgeable. It's going to be a great session. Let me just give them each 30 seconds to talk about who they are and what they do. Kelly, do you want to kick it off for us?
Sure. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Kelly Kiger. As Gregory said, I'm the VP of Commercial Vehicle Sales for Workhorse. Workhorse is a US-based manufacturing company of all battery electric class 4 through 6 vehicles. We are pioneering the transition to EVs. So we have a nationwide dealer network that we sell through, and our goal is just to support fleets as they make their transition. And we have knowledgeable salespeople and dealer sales folks to help you along your way.
Right on. Perfect. Stephen, how are you?
Yeah, well, as previously stated, I'm Stephen Rice, National Fleet Account Executive for ChargePoint. For those of you that don't know ChargePoint, we are the leading EVSE, electric vehicle service equipment provider. We have our own in-house hardware and in-house software. We offer full turnkey solutions for not just fleets, which is my vertical that I work in, but also commercial, hospitality, home chargers as well. And through that, we leverage our partnerships with OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers, and installer networks and distributors to offer this full turnkey service. Specifically in the fleet world, we also offer a fleet modeling service and a lot of really cool stuff to help you understand where to transition, how to transition, and what solution works best for you for your electric vehicles.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Gil, how are you?
I'm good. I'm Gil Weiss, and I work in the training industry, and I do curriculum development as well as the stand-up training, and I do all aspects of the motor vehicle. So I do car, power sports, and commercial and heavy truck. I also worked at NADA for 4 years, where I was director of custom curriculum, where we did a lot of work with some of the Class 8 truck companies as well as some of the smaller companies. I do a lot of grassroots training where we're teaching new commercial account managers how to enter the business and how to be students of the profession. So we have some formalized programs that we've created that we do for multiple manufacturers.
All right. One of the first things I want us to get into in our discussion, the title of the session is Collaboration, Integration, Prioritization, Fostering Business Growth. Can you talk a little bit about what you're currently doing, to sort of generate growth in each of your own respective domains? What collaborations are in play, and what are you doing to sort of foster new organic growth? Feel free.
Mine's a little different. Mine's a little different than the others because I don't have a physical product to sell or inventory that's stacking up on me or a shortage of thereof. My inventory is my calendar days. I can only sell so many, right? Mm-hmm. I have other people that I collaborate with where they can fill in for me. I can fill in for them, or we'll partner on projects together. But the biggest thing I do is stay in touch. I go to the industry events and things like that and stay in touch with all the people I know, even people who have retired that are out of it because they all keep in touch with other people. And one, they're just friends after a while, and it's just nice to stay in touch with them. But also, you end up getting a lot of referrals.
Okay. Is there anything that has come up recently, Gil, where maybe it's something that's not specifically in your wheelhouse, but that you work with somebody else to sort of integrate into your proposition, or what it is you have to sell?
Actually, there is. And a lot of people who do what I do, they're very siloed. They just do trucks, or they just do cars, or they just do stand up, or they just write. I really like the variety, and I get, and for that reason, people know me that way, and I get all kinds of weird requests. The most unusual one I've ever had is one I'm working on right now. I've been hired to be a professional witness for a court case in the U.S. territory on a manufacturer dealer dispute. And so that's pretty interesting. I've had to write like 75-page reports, and it's quite intense, actually. And so that's something it's not on my website that I do that. It's just something that just kind of fell in my lap.
Yeah. So is that going to be on your resume now? Professional witness? That's you're going to sell?
I'll let you know when the court case is over.
Yeah. Hopefully I never need you. That's all I need to say.
That's it. Right.
Kelly, what are you doing on your end?
Sure. So I think, so being the OEM, we're collaborating with our dealers regularly, obviously, going after customers. But another piece of it outside of the dealer network is working with FMCs, finance companies, charge equipment providers, because, we're selling EVs and it's new to the space. So being able to present the customer a package that is all encompassing of what they need to be successful makes a huge difference than just trying to sell them a truck. So being able to partner with folks like ChargePoint and go, on joint customer calls to present them, what it's going to take to get their grid updated or to get the infrastructure installed or a site survey. And then, okay, and here's the truck price and the TCO for all of that together. So you're really presenting them with a number that they can, digest and make work within their budget, versus just dropping off a quote for a truck and walking away.
Yeah. How do you think that sort of repositions your business? Because I'm assuming like if it's just the truck or if it's just the equipment, then it's sort of transactional. Do you feel like it shifts the perspective of the client from one place to another?
Sure. I think that it elongates the sales cycle. Customers need to become familiar with all the bits and pieces that go into making the transition to EV. And then, it becomes more of an educational session. You got these folks that have been under diesel trucks for 30 plus years. And so these are, batteries and e-axles and components that they're maybe not as familiar with. So it can start, from the fleet manager, but then the sales also encompasses making sure their technicians are trained and can work with high voltage, and then make sure that they understand the difference between, our motors and, a standard ICE engine. So, and then you got the financial team that plays a role there as well, going over, what it's going to cost to do all of the outside the fence or inside the fence upgrades along with the vehicle acquisition. So it's a very educational long-term sale, but very different from a standard truck sale for sure.
Yeah. So do you think of yourself now as like, a sales, like a truck selling company, or is it something else? Like, would you put a different label on it?
Oh, it's certainly more like consulting, educational type sales. Really, because we're selling a brand new product, and it's not a legacy that you can go in and call on the same customers you've been calling on for, your entire professional career. So it's a different customer base that is either, a front runner and they're up to speed on technology and they're ready to jump in with 2 feet, or it's somebody that's, maybe being driven by a sustainability initiative from the headquarters, and they're maybe resistant to the change. And so having to educate them, put them behind the wheel, let them, feel the difference and understand, what they're getting themselves into. So it's a gamut of educational opportunities based on where the customer is in their, buying cycle.
Right. Now, Stephen, really, it's a growth industry for you. What do you, how is it that you're working on this?
Yeah, so the collaboration, I mean, we collaborate with so many aspects because we're the charger, we're the new fueling provider, really is what it comes to it. Because I mean, the transitioning, as previously mentioned with Kelly, a lot of it is educating on where to transition, what to do next. What's the difference of driving an electric vehicle versus a stick shift cement mixer? You know, there's so many different things that we're seeing the transition, but really we collaborate with the OEMs on one piece to make sure that their vehicles are going to work with our interoperability lab in California.
Yeah.
That's like step one. You know, make sure that the hardware works with the hardware and software is talking constantly. But the other things we do, we've got in-dash integration so that you can find chargers away from the depot to elongate the routes. That's one big thing that we're doing with a lot of OEMs, to where it's just throwing ChargePoint's map and all of the stations. I think we're at like 1.2 million globally right now that you can access through just your touchscreen on the vehicles. And then naturally, if there's no touchscreen in the vehicle for whatever manufacturer reasons, we've got the app integrations and a bunch of other stuff. But really, we start the collaboration on the vehicle side, and then we figure out and right size for the customer. Because we've got customers that are starting their transition. We also have customers that have been transitioning for 5, 10 years now. They were early to the game. So they started and really optimized, understood their, you know, where they want to electrify. If it's a depot in Colorado or a depot in Illinois, now they can kind of copy and paste what they did in California, maybe into Illinois and Colorado, and move forward with that. And then we leverage our local partners that for the installation of everything. So we're not reinventing the wheel with some of these customers, just adding rubber to it. That's the biggest thing. Is try to make this easy as possible.
That's a
Greg,
nice.
I would add something to what Stephen and Kelly said. I think there's some great takeaways there. I basically heard them both say that because of the newness of what they do, they spend a lot of their time being consultants and educators rather than just selling a truck or rather than just selling a charger. But I would submit that even people who sell exclusively gas and diesel trucks, for example, should do the same thing. They should be educating their fleets. They should be educators, and they should be students of their profession, and they should be selling their trucks not so much from the feature benefit specification standpoint, but also from how does it fit into their fleet needs and understanding how their fleets operate, and even being a clearinghouse of fleet best practices as well. And I think when you make that shift from salesperson to a sales consultant, and it's the kind of thing that's really going to get you a lot of referrals.
Yeah. Now, and let me throw this quick. I mean, it's a great point. So let me throw this out to everybody. You know, it's one thing to talk about being able to effectively educate your constituents and your clients. It's another thing if you're a salesperson and we're going, okay, now guess what? You're not just selling this truck, or you're not just selling this equipment. You know, now you need to inform your customer. Now you need to sort of work with them and understand deeply what it is that they need. They might say they need something, but they actually might need something else. What sort of advice do you have? So this is, again, for all of you, what sort of advice do you have, or what sorts of things have you seen have been really effective in sort of onboarding your client or changing the way that they think about their relationship with you?
Well, I'll take that one first. I mean, because ours is, like I said, we're just a slice of the electrification process. Naturally, you've got the vehicles, the building, and then the charger itself. I mean, if you look at a depot level. So really what we do is we revert from a transactional sales process of, cool, here's the hardware, awesome, thank you, we're paid, on to the next one. You do more of a programmatic approach. You talk to the C-suite, you know, just a case there, and then work your way down to understand the C-suite's on board with transitioning to electric. Okay, cool. Who are you putting in charge of transitioning? There's got to be a Steven somewhere at your business that's in charge of this. So then we educate them. Then if there's a landlord, we need to educate them. So it literally is just educating from top down and making sure everyone's reading from the same sheet of music. That's really the biggest thing, instead of it just being a decision maker at a local level in Peoria, Illinois, you know, making all the decisions for these large corporations. It ends up being a full umbrella approach.
Yeah. Does anybody have any success stories or sort of lessons learned from your journey so far, into this sort of there's a new marketplace, and to Gil's point, there's sort of an established marketplace. But within that, do you have success stories about reaching out to and engaging your customer base?
Sure, I'll take that one. So we first started manufacturing our current vehicles in 2023. And, you go out initially and you're selling an idea because you haven't actually made it yet. So then we move through the selling of the idea into actually presenting the vehicle. And the entire conversation changes when you're showing, pictures of a prototype versus walking the driver out to put them behind the wheel. The sales process, like Stephen alluded to, encompasses a number of folks on different levels in the company. But from the truck perspective, getting the driver buy-in is incredible for the sale, because you can have everybody from the top down saying, this is what we're going to do and we're moving forward here. But that buy-in from the person that's actually behind the wheel makes a huge difference on, what avenue that decision maker actually takes in the long run. So getting past that kind of selling through PowerPoint stage, actually manufacturing vehicles, delivering a demo to a customer so the driver can get behind it, and then having that follow-up call, if it's a week demo or a month demo, however long later that happens, and letting the driver say, I don't want an EV. I've never wanted an EV. I'm a diesel person and I have been for 30 years. And then after that demo's over, them going, can we buy that truck? Because I want that one to be mine. That's how much I like driving it. And going through that process that's a huge win for a truck sales, because of you're getting the buy-in from, all the parties, and it's not just people being told what to do.
Yeah. So some of it is like the real world piece, the bums in seats and getting people to touch and feel, right? Like going beyond sort of the concept to the reality of it. Gil, what do you see on your end, from a training perspective?
Well, I agree with that as well, because the further you go down the company, the less visionary people tend to be. They want to keep things just exactly the way they've always been, much like Kelly just alluded to. And they become idea assassins, right? And they become snipers, and they want to do everything they can to undermine this transition. And so it could be as simple as, even if you're not selling electric vehicles, you're selling gas and diesel vehicles, and it represents a brand switch. They've been using this brand, and now you're coming in and they've decided to buy this brand. On a smaller level, the same thing needs to occur. You need their buy-in, because the less you listen, the louder they will scream. And so you need to make their voices feel heard and give them the opportunity to come around.
Yeah, sounds like a marriage.
Yes. Yeah. You're kind of like a marriage counselor.
Communication's key on a lot of this stuff, really is.
If you had to, sort of outline some of the deterrents, and again, Gil sort of alluded to this, right? Talking about assassins and snipers. What do you think, but from a business perspective, so knowing that we have some dealers in the audience and things like that, what do you think are sort of the biggest deterrents and challenges they need to overcome when it comes to reaching beyond, their sort of day-to-day and thinking about working with others in the space? Because each of you on here has done that in some way, shape, or form.
You really get out of your comfort zone. That's the biggest thing that I see, that when people are transitioning to electric vehicles, and it could be a personal vehicle switch. My personal story is I went from a GMC Yukon XL Denali to a Chevy Bolt. And one night I made the decision, I made the switch, I drank the juice, I went full electric, and I haven't turned back since. My family, it's great for our needs and everything. And through that, I was able to understand not just the personal ownership, hardships, and also headwinds and tailwinds that come with electric vehicle transition. That helps me educate the C-suite on the benefits of not just transitioning their personal vehicle, but their yard dogs, their tractor trailers, the box trucks, whatever it might be. And kind of, I've been there. I know the feeling. So that kind of helps me with any transition conversations that we're having. But really, my advice would be just transition. Jump in, start. There's no better time to start electrifying than last year, is my idea.
Yeah, Stephen, you're also alluding to something which is interesting. And I mean, it sort of speaks to this idea of empathy or putting yourself in the shoes of somebody else. Do you think that's a key piece to it too?
Oh yeah, massively. Massive thing here. You wouldn't be able to, so let's go to the dealership level. You wouldn't be able to sell, let's go a sports car, a massive heavy duty truck. If you've never driven one, you have no clue how to fuel it. You have no clue how to service it, and you have no clue the ownership intervals or the benefits of it. You wouldn't be that very good of a salesman. You wouldn't sell too many sports cars or trucks at that point. Now, let's just switch that to electric vehicles. Do you know how to fuel it? Do you know how it feels to drive it? Do you know the benefits and maybe even the downfalls of owning and driving one? And that's just on a personal level. You get into the commercial side, those questions just expand because you have all those decision makers and all of those people in that organization that are affected by this transition. It's just not me, my fiance, and my 2 kids affected by my transition from the Yukon to the Bolt. Now I've got a whole company that's with me, So you got to understand, and really empathy is key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would also say, Greg, your question is, besides just before you can empathize, you have to understand, right? And the best way to understand, we love to talk to people who do what we do, right? Because they're like our own kind when it comes to, vocationally our own kind. And so we have so much to talk about, and there's much to be learned, and we should absolutely do that. But we should also make a point to talk to people who vocationally are not our own kind. Talk to people in other corners of the industry and even people outside of the industry so that you have a little different perspective so that we don't become too tunnel vision on our beliefs. So we have a better understanding of how other people might think and what other factors there are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we truly can become empathetic.
Yeah. And I could add to this because I'll tell you, one of the key deterrents I see, especially when it comes to electric, but it's applicable to any sort of class and any vocation, is this idea of the truth. When we're talking hydrogen fuel cell, we're talking electrics, and the sales brochure is very different than the reality. Then all of a sudden, this fleet gets this truck or these trucks, and they put them in a service, and guess what? The range isn't there, the payload isn't there. It's a pain in the ass to find fueling for it, and they go, hey man, why didn't you tell me all of this going in? Like, it's really nice that I have this brand new shiny truck out there, but when I try and use it in my application day to day, it's nothing like what you sold to me. And so that idea of, not just putting yourself in their shoes, but really being candid and forthright about the downside of what you're selling them seems to be, they sort of respect that, and they want you to tell them that as much as they want you to tell them what's so great about it. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, so I'll share with you that Workhorse, because we knew we were up against some of that, going into the market, we purchased our own contractor route for a major package delivery company in order to put our vehicles on the road and put them to the test, because we didn't want to be the people who, said, we ran the numbers and you'll get some crazy, amount of miles per charge. We wanted to make sure we were sharing real world data so we could, we put trucks on routes that were doing, X number of stops per day and how long it took them to get those stops done. And then we could really get into, what's regen really look like on a class 6 step van with 100 stops that's going 80 miles. Like, what are you really getting out of that? What is state of charge when you get back? And so we could really, sit down and show them we've done this. This is not just us having the engineers, at the test center spouting out numbers and we're telling you that's what you're going to get. We've done it and we're here to show it to you. And that also plays into why we try to get our customers to do demos. We encourage all of our dealers to own demo trucks because that's what makes the difference. Go take the truck, put it on the route you're doing, and you can see the numbers yourself right there on the dashboard. We also give them access to telematics software, so they can, the fleet managers really can see the exact route they went on, what happened during that route, and how can they apply those numbers to the rest of their business. So they're really making a nice informed decision. And it's not just, it's not just Southern California driving. I'll say that.
Well, that's awesome you mentioned that, Kelly, because the data of real data going out and driving is so key to the transition. Because like you said, if you have a vehicle that can only do 80 miles fully loaded and your route's 200 miles, that 80-mile vehicle is not going to work unless you have destination charging along the line. So a lot of the people that I work with, like you said, either a demo or they do a pilot site. It'll be a large corporation that decides we want to move forward with electrification, but we're going to choose one depot that we know for a fact has the routes right sized for these trucks that we plan on doing. Or they purchase 3 different brands of trucks and kind of test them out. And then really the litmus test or the data aggregator is the charging system. Shameless plug for ChargePoint's fleet software there. But we were able to gather all of that fleet information, very similar to telematics, and you can aggregate and understand not just what your vehicles are doing. When they leave with 80%, they come back with 20% SOC. You can also figure out, all right, how long is it going to take until I can turn and burn that vehicle again? Because maybe I've got a 24-hour operation. We're constantly moving. Do I need to buy one charger for one vehicle, or can one charger work for several vehicles? So it's data is key. It's getting out there and just piloting, demoing a vehicle, something along those lines. Get your hands on one, I think is the biggest thing. But data, and I'll say it all day long, is key to the transition.
Well, and really what you just said was be mature enough and be disciplined enough to say when your product isn't a good fit for somewhere. Because even before EV trucks came along, we were selling people diesels that didn't need them. We were selling people gas that should have had a diesel, and all of the above, right? And not only that, but the world changes. We went from having 3-speed transmissions to having 10-speed transmissions. And we have more powerful engines, right? We have the engine technology. So all of a sudden, a vehicle application that needed a diesel for 20 years could have a gas 10-speed, right? And do just fine and be, because of the emissions requirements, save $10,000 or $20,000 per copy, and you need more than one, right? And so that's another big thing, is that the world changes. And that's the biggest challenge with EVs, is most of what people knew that was true at one time is no longer true today. They think of a golf cart, they think of the Saturn EV1, they still use lead acid batteries, right? And look how far our phones have come. I remember buying my first cell phone. I followed the instructions. I charged it. I made a 3-minute call on the way to work. I was going to make another call at lunchtime, and my battery was dead, right? That's the way things were. And so what happens is, whether it's electric or gas or diesel or any of the other technologies, the world has changed. And so not only do we not want to oversell what our product can do, but we need to re-educate people constantly.
Yeah.
I like the throwback reference there, Gil, the Saturn EV1. I'm going to see everybody in the audience like, yeah, I remember that. Like, the what? What are we talking about? All right, Stephen, you said something which was maybe we can use that as a jump off point. So you were talking about, destination charging versus charging en route. Let's flip this a little bit. We always talk about this stuff from the supply side. So the manufacturer or the dealer or whomever, actually maybe not the dealer, but certainly the manufacturer or the equipment suppliers. Let's talk about it from the demand side. So can you guys as a group maybe talk a little bit about what the community can do? So the commercial vehicle community, being the end users, the dealers, whomever, to sort of foster growth or work with you on your end to start building out infrastructure or to start building out, knowledge bases and things like that. Because it's not just a one-way road, not just a one-way street. They have to be part of it and help foster that growth too. So how would you go about collaborating with them, or what should they do to collaborate with you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, a few things come to mind. There's a lot of ride and drive events that are out there that are constantly looking for OEMs. And then a lot of the time they go directly to a dealer. Like I know there's one out there currently that's doing like a 17 state stop. Like it's a national thing. They're doing ride and drive events. They're packing up and going to the next state, next event center. And they're actually contacting local dealerships and asking, do you have an electric vehicle you can bring? We're representing XYZ OEM. We need 3 of the vehicles. Do you have any in stock? No? Okay, next one. I mean, shamelessly for a dealership, that's your sticker. That's your license plate bracket right there. So that's free marketing most of the time. The other thing is that gives you access to the people that are wanting to know more. It may not be that they're ready to buy today or ready to buy tomorrow, but they're going to down the road. They're choosing to seek out that information. And whoever they speak to first, regardless if they give them good information or bad information, that's going to be the person they listen to most of the time. I think there's a study out there on dealer sales that a customer will go to 1.2 dealerships before making a buying decision. So if you're the second guy or gal, then you don't have as good as a chance as the first person. That's the same thing with education. You've got to be the first person there to educate them. And hopefully you're the first person to educate them correctly. So there's a lot of those events that are out there. And I mean, even if you have questions, I could speak, I think, for everybody else on the panel, reach out to us. We're more than happy to introduce you to our companies directly with any questions on a one-on-one schedule. So I know there's a lot more people out there that are interested in answering questions and helping out more than one would think.
Right.
I think also finding a champion for your product that's not a member of your team or your, for us, dealer network. When we go to a depot, finding that one, contractor that, we can align with, that sees the value in what we're selling and then can help us then be that champion within the depot to let, get other people on board for an educational session or for a truck demo. But fostering, those relationships, kind of like Gil was saying, outside of the normal people that we talk to every day, always can lead to introductions and conversations. And, battery electric vehicles are not, they're not flying off the shelf, if you will. So a lot of this is a long conversation. It's a long educational session to get them up to speed to be purchased. So having connections within the industry and outside the industry to have that champion to drive forward really can make a difference.
Gil, I got a question for you, or for you to kick off at least. Now, all of us, the 4 of us have spoken sort of on the side to get to know each other and introduce ourselves a little bit. And one thing that seemed to be a common denominator, and Kelly's just sort of, again, alluded to it, is this need to sort of educate whoever it might be that you're talking to. So it's not just selling, it's about bringing them up to speed. So the question is, when we're thinking about training and education, is there something that we can do to sort of build a more connected or informed community, like commercial vehicle community, and everybody within it, versus just a sort of one-on-one thing? Gil, how would you tackle that?
I would say you have to leave the office. People need to be encouraged to leave the office. And, in my business, no one has ever knocked on my office door and asked me, hey, can you do some training for me? Right. It will never happen. Right. And so it's a bit of an extreme example, but at least because of that extreme example, I know I have to go to conferences. I know I have to go and visit people. I know I have to pick up the phone and follow up with people. Whereas in a dealership environment, some people actually do come to the dealership and buy a truck occasionally. And or they'll call into the dealership and want to buy a truck, or they'll send an email or an online lead, and it leaves us with the false impression that we shouldn't leave the store. And it's it's not so much a problem with the class 8 people. They know they've got to leave the store. That's their business model. But the class 3 through 5, let's say, or even 6 and 7, they seem to not leave the store as often as they should. And very few of them will go to the NTEA work truck show every year to network and to see what's new and to see what's coming, right? Anything that's new and maybe even questionable whether it will take off is 2 years from now becomes the runaway hit, and we're playing catch up. And so you have to get yourself out there, go to raise your hand for training, right? And if you get to the training, if you can't learn, then teach. If you can't learn because you know everything about the subject matter, well, then teach and network that way. And so the people that stay connected and go to every meeting, go to every conference, whether from their manufacturer or from the industry, they always seem to know who to call when they need something, and they can always get assistance with things. And they're just more interesting to be around for their time.
Yeah, great advice. Kelly, let me take what Gil just said and ask you how you would sort of mold that response. So if we think about, again, if we're talking about dealers, and Gil's just saying, hey, you know what, a lot of dealers don't leave their house, which is true. How do you go about, as a dealer or a part of a dealer network, setting up an event or setting up some sort of showcase, even locally, to bring people in? Like, what's the pathway to doing that?
I think our dealers specifically, have found success in ride and drives. I think Stephen mentioned that earlier. Having an open house that allows maybe non-current customers to come and look through the inventory, drive the truck, get used to chatting with the sales reps on site. But I think, they're right. You can't just sit at a desk. You don't sell EVs online. People aren't going to go to a website and go, yes, I would love to spend a couple $100,000 on a vehicle I've never driven or seen before. So
you don't know my friends.
Do what?
You don't know my friends.
Oh, well, maybe a passenger vehicle, but I'm going to go. They're not going to do it for a commercial vehicle. So yeah, just having events at the dealership, opening it up to the community. A lot of them turn it into a nonprofit money raising event. So you come and you buy a ticket for a Yeti cooler. You get to drive the truck. You get to meet the staff, and really just embracing the people that are close by that you can do business. And then you still don't have to leave the dealership in their in their defense is what I was going for.
Do you think that model works in, let's say, smaller towns, smaller locations? Like, we often think, when we think dealers, we think the coast or we think big cities.
Sure.
Like, what about if you're in like some small town in Idaho? Like, does that model still work, or do we have to rethink about what a dealer could do to be, engaged?
Well, yeah, I think it can work. It depends on, what businesses are local to your small town. Are there fleet managers? Are people, most towns that have a dealership have some sort of distribution not too far away. So it can work. But we've also had success with renting like a parking lot for a Coliseum and driving vehicles from an hour outside a city into a larger city to be able to do kind of the same type of thing. You can still, throw a grill in the back of the truck and make hot dogs and put signs up and do a ride and drive around the exterior of the parking lot. So there's ways to take what you've got going on in a smaller town that's outside of metropolis and go in downtown and still, get the same results. And even that, helps to expose the dealership to a larger audience as well. Bigger city, more people, more businesses.
Yeah. Stephen, I have a question for you, which is around this idea of sort of medium to long-term future, like partnership, like thinking about partnerships. So to this point, we've sort of been talking about today, but do you like, when you think out into the future, do you see the opportunity for like robust partnerships or partnerships growing to fruition that don't maybe exist today?
Yeah, constantly. Because the only thing in life that's constant is change. And if you don't change, then you're stagnant and you don't really get to do anything moving forward. And that's just business in general. You've got to be fluid with the ever-changing market. But when it comes to partnerships, I know, once again, shameless plug, a ChargePoint. We announced a partnership with LG recently on their hardware. to where their hardware works with our software now. So we used to be a closed network to where you had to have ChargePoint hardware and had to have ChargePoint software. We've now done away with that to where all of our hardware works with every charge management system and backwards compatible, where our software will work with anybody's hardware. And that's through partnerships with the other manufacturers that are out there and the OEMs. Because we might find out that at the OEM, they use XYZ charger that's manufactured by XYZ company, but they want our software for the benefits of that. So then we open up a partnership with them. So we move with our clients, and I think everyone should. It's like I said, the idea of being stagnant is kind of the killer. You got to be fluid in this.
Yeah.
So I'll add on to that. I think voice of the customer plays a huge role in the evolution of, vehicles, OEM business. We can, manufacture all kinds of trucks, but if we don't listen to our customers and make the changes to the vehicle that the customer needs, we're still continuing to sell a truck that's maybe not as viable in the market as it could be if we use the feedback for our roadmap and product ideas.
It's everything you guys are talking about is very cool. I get it. I understand it. I'm wondering, again, if this is not sort of the natural tendency for a dealer or an operation to sort of go out, like strike out and, forge a partnership with someone they've never spoken to before, like what advice do you have for, first of all, finding a partnership or a collaboration that makes sense? And then second part is, what's the approach? Like, how do you do it?
Well, you got to get out of your comfort zone is sometimes. I understand we all have our comfort zones, like stay in our bubbles. We all work from home most of the time, as I think everybody on the panel is sitting at home right now taking the call. But really get out of those comfort zones, and these ride and drive events is a really good place to find those partnerships, to display those partnerships. And you're like, well, how do I set up the ride and drive event? There's a lot of them that are already set up that you may not know about. Local utilities here in Illinois, we've got Ameren and ComEd. They both put on stuff. So those partnerships with OEMs and ChargePoint, we go and do those ride and drive events with them and, showcase our chargers along next to our OEM partners. But then that brings in everybody in the utility space, because everybody's got to buy power from somebody. And if you say, well, I've got a co-op, it's not just one company that owns and operates the power. Well, there is clean city coalitions and clean driving coalitions that are in almost every single state in the United States and even up in Canada that you can be a part of. So there's a lot of these groups that are out there that you could easily join for $50 a year on some of them, to where you get full access to their client list, people that are interested with electrification, and even people who may not be interested in electrification and you want to sell them a diesel truck. There's that opportunity there as well.
Mm-hmm. And also attending the, standard trade events, NTEA, ACT, the World of Concrete, Waste Expo, all of those are, they have the expos and obviously everybody goes and we show our trucks off or their charging equipment. But I think also those educational sessions include, manufacturers, other trucking companies, and everything in between, from service providers and charging infrastructure. They're all in the same room. Someone's up delivering a message, whether it's about battery electric vehicles or not. And you have the opportunity to have questions at the end. And that sparks a lot of that conversation. If you've ever walked by one of those rooms, when the session's over, there's still 2 or 3 groups of people and they're standing in there, talking about whatever the subject matter was. So, trade shows, I get it, they're a lot of money and it's a lot of time and people, but I think a lot of that like educational piece of it is huge for our industry to continue to move forward. And whether it's electric or hydrogen or whatever the next thing is, that keeps us all kind of on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gil, what would you say?
Well, I think, become the go-to guys. Whatever it is you do, become the go-to guy. And venture outside of your own norm. I think a great success story is my nephew was telling me about this, that he lives in Kalispell, Montana, not a big place. And the local electric company there went out and they bought a Tesla. And they advertise to all of their customers that they can come and reserve this vehicle and come and take it for a couple of days and use it and bring it back, and it doesn't cost anything. And they're not trying to sell cars. They're not even in the car business. They have one car, right? And they don't want to sell it. But the idea being is they want to get people exposed. Why? Because they want to sell electricity, right? They're not getting anything out of these people gassing up their vehicles, right? And so something like that could be done with a commercial vehicle, with the understanding it would only be commercial accounts that would be able to use that. And that would be especially true on the smaller trucks.
Yeah. And, you know, I like what everybody's saying about, like, it seems to be sort of a consistent theme again. You know, you keep talking about the shows, whether it be NTEA, ACT, World of Concrete, I've never heard of before, but now I'm totally going to go check that out because for some reason I'm interested in concrete. But, you know, basically you have a captive audience, right? Like, it's the easiest way to not just build your business, but connect with people, you know, within and outside of your business, because they're all in one spot. And yeah, they're not cheap. You know, you've said it. They're not cheap. They're not always easy to get to or spend the time, but the ROI on going to a show is probably way higher than trying to do it all on your own from your own house. All right, let's pivot a little bit and talk about sort of the thing that's on everybody's minds and tips of their tongues, which is AI. I personally don't use it. It's probably to the extent that I should, but you know, everybody's curious about it. Do you think that AI, sort of a curveball question, do you think AI can be leveraged to help build out businesses, whether it be collaboration or new business ideas or any of that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think AI is a powerful tool, and in the right hands, it can do really, really good stuff with it. I mean, ChargePoint, we actually use AI internally and externally, responsibly, naturally, to where if there's an issue with the charging station, you take a picture of it directly on the app after you find the charging station, report a problem, and it's picture to resolution. So AI is actually looking at the picture of it and goes, okay, let's digest this. We know what a charger is supposed to look like. You're telling me the charger looks like this. Oh, the screen's broken. Let me roll a truck and I'll get you something. We'll get it fixed. So it automatically creates a service ticket, all that fun stuff as well. And then I also have some trucking companies that I spoke to that they're integrating AI for pre-trip inspections, that they walk around with just their phone and videotape the truck, and AI puts it all together, saves the recording, and goes, you know what? You had a dent here. You got a cracked tail light there. So AI can be used to streamline and expand your business drastically. Now, and for people listening in the audience, I know there's a lot of AI tools for your dealership outreach systems as well, that they list when a customer's, hot, medium, and cold on their buying cycles based off of their behaviors. So I think there's a place for it in all businesses. I don't think it needs to run the entire business or anything like that.
Others, what do you think? Or maybe, do you have a point of view on it?
Well, a simplistic application of AI that I think everybody can relate to is it can write for you. And half of my income comes from writing curriculum. And it's very disturbing to me that AI can do a lot of what I can do practically for free. Okay, well, that's my problem, but it's everybody else's opportunity. If writing reports and writing newsletters and writing correspondence and encapsulating articles, to do that, it's like, how cool is that? And so it takes someone that doesn't just naturally have those skills, that doesn't use them as the core of their job. It becomes a tool in their toolkit. All of a sudden, they've leveled the playing field with the best writers out there. And so that's, I think, the way to look at it is, how can AI fill in where maybe I don't have particular skills or experience, and how can I use it in that way or on a large scale for a business?
So really, it is worth dipping your toe into that pool just to see what it's all about and figure out what's going on with it. Would you say?
Well, it's coming. We're not going to stop it, right? Nobody was able to stop the internet.
We are.
Huh? What's that?
I said, we're going to stop it. No, I'm just kidding. Kelly, what do you think?
Oh, I think about the meme on the internet right now that says you better start eating healthy and exercising because all the medical students are going through college with AI doing their work for them. Just a joke, medical students. Yeah, I think for us, from a marketing perspective, it adds, complements the people that we have, on our team right now. We run pretty lean at Workhorse, and having tools like that can help, with outreach, with inbound, and then lead gen. Like, we can use that to really complement the team that we have. Not a ton of experience with it, but I think there's definitely positives out there that we can just continue. More education, Gregory. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay. We're winding down now. We got a couple more minutes, and there might even be a minute or two if there's any questions in the audience. You might want to throw them up there now. But let's talk a little bit. Kelly, you just talked about, right, the future. What does in your minds for each of you? Take 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Tell me, what does the future look like for commercial vehicles in your mind, based on what you know and where you're headed?
I would say that efficiency, cost efficiency is the big thing. And any product, whether it's a battery electric vehicle or a more fuel efficient gas vehicle or a vehicle that is much smaller, that can do a much bigger job than before, anything that falls under that umbrella of efficiency sells. Because these aren't sports cars. These are beasts of burden, and people are looking to save money in their operating costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the future.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree that it's in the future with battery electric vehicles. Even so, you add the cost of the electric vehicle, the cost of the charger, the cost of the software, possibly utility upgrade to create a fleet depot that can actually house this many battery electric vehicles. We're seeing people that hit the 2-year mark and they broke even if they would have bought a gasoline vehicle versus an electric vehicle. Now, after those 2 years, they're making money or saving money by not buying diesel, oil changes, tire rotations, drive shafts that drop at the bottom of them. They're waiting for a week for their truck to be fixed, all the things that fleet managers know about. So really, I foresee in the future that businesses will be able to run more financially lean if they lean into this transition of battery electric and do it correctly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other piece of it is, as we move forward through the transition to alternative fuels, we drive the cost of those vehicles down. So right now, lots of companies paying by the kilowatt hour for batteries. The more batteries on the road, the less that cost is. And, that cost can be then passed along to the consumer. So, more wide acceptance of that, allowing the partners like the OEMs, like Stephen from ChargePoint, and probably even from Gil from a training perspective, to show you the ROI on, it can be sticker shock up front. But if you really look at the true cost of ownership and how not having to stop and fill up with diesel or gas and being able to charge overnight, and how you can kind of weigh electric costs versus fuel costs, you can really show a savings, and it can change your business dramatically in the future.
Right on. Gil, Kelly, Stephen, fantastic conversation. Thank you very much for all your insights and your input, and look forward to having another conversation again with you in the future.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Been fun. Thank you.
Thank you.